morning, it's Randy McLean from WayPoint, and I want to welcome you to our next executive briefing, which is about working on the marginal or regular accounts. This is part of the strategy in the sense that it's a great opportunity to optimize profitability in the business and can affect a broad array of your customers. It also addresses one of the industry-wide issues that distribution companies have, in that we've all pretty much managed to collect a lot of small accounts, very large numbers of small accounts that are marginally profitable or in some cases largely unprofitable, and it can affect the business. Now, unlike the high leverage accounts or high efficiency accounts, the other kinds of accounts that are at the top of the range, the regular accounts are large in numbers and can add up to significant profit dollar gains or losses. But each individual account can't have any kind of significant effect on the business, but treating them as a whole can lead to some very good profit opportunities. So the first thing I wanted to let everybody know is that you'll be seeing for the first time a new regular accounts report that's in WayPoint. This particular account is the flip side of the high volume accounts report that we've been talking about for the last month or two. And I want to look into what that report has on it and what we should be doing about the accounts that fall into the regular account category. At the bottom of that report and also the high volume account report, we have some stats on the segments, and we have stats on the high efficiency accounts, the high potential accounts, and the profit drain accounts, which we talk about in other venues. What we're focusing on this morning is the regular plus, which are the money making small volume accounts, and the regular minus, which are the money losing small volume accounts. And so for these accounts, they add up to a pretty significant share of the business. In this particular business, it's 25% for the money making, 57% of the count total for the money losing regular accounts, and that adds up to over 82% of all of the accounts in this particular business. They collectively generate a little less than 13% of the revenue and a little less than 12% of the, or around 12% of the cash flow or gross profit in the business. So they're significant enough to be interested in. And the good thing about these small account categories, the regular plus, regular minus, is they lend themselves very well to policy solutions. You can think how you're going to handle these accounts as a monolithic whole, build a proper service model for them, and then apply that service model to most of the accounts. And I want to say most for a couple of reasons. The first thing is that there will be accounts in here that fall into this category but don't really belong here because they're really large volume accounts, but they're only getting their feet wet with you. They're only buying a very small part of theirs, of what they need from you, and that reflects as a very small part of what you sell. And so some of those accounts will be caught up in this group mathematically, and so when you're making your policy solutions, you should take that into account. And there will always be certain accounts within the group, and in this case there's over 600 of them, and in the 600 accounts there might be 15 or 20 of them that we should really treat another way because they have a different kind of potential, so we might not apply those policies to them. These accounts represent collectively about 25% of the expenses of the company, even though they actually lose about 14–15% of the bottom line collectively. But within this, the regular plus accounts generate 10% of the NBC in the company. The regular minus lose about 25% of our bottom line in this company. Your mileage may vary, but the interesting thing is this is a significant group, and in fact they have as much impact as the high potential accounts, which generate 14% of our bottom line. These accounts actually could potentially represent more than that collectively, so they're interesting and important enough to follow. Now, to look at some of the other stats that are at the bottom of that report, I've just taken the last few columns and sort of moved them over so we can look at them. And so looking again at the customer accounts, the regular plus accounts, which are the regular accounts that are money making, we still have 74% of the invoices for those accounts that lose money, and that's something above the 67% or 77% average company-wide, or up near there. 89% of all the money losing account invoices, are all the invoices from money losing accounts lose money. And of course, the higher that this fraction is, the percentage of money losing invoices you have, the more losses that are generated. And what's going on in this small business, a $20 million business, is that the money losing invoices in the regular plus accounts represent about $82,000 of profit that is made and then consumed in transactions where the cost or the expenses are higher than the gross profit or cash flow from the accounts. And in the regular minus, the money losing small accounts, there's about $460,000 of profit that is made within that group is being lost, leaving us only $89,000. Oh, well, there's a peak profit of $89,000 on the money-making business, and then we're losing $460,000. And so that puts us completely upside down on those small accounts. Now, the reason those accounts are the way they are is that we sell them small quantities of product on single increments, and those increments have a logistical cost that is higher than the cash flow or gross profit that's provided on the accounts. And so it's very important to take a look at how we work with those accounts. And the best thing that we've discovered so far is concept of generating individual business models. Now, what you're seeing on your screen is a picture of business model generation, which is about a $20 book on Amazon. Every executive and every manager that wants to have broad responsibility and be very successful in their career should have read and have mastered the information in this book. Business model generation is about understanding and creating a profitable business model around each segment of the business. And in most distribution companies, we have high volume accounts, we may have government accounts, we may have small retail type accounts, we may have a service department, we may have rentals, we may have some value add or light assembly operation that we do. Every one of those segments in the business should have a properly planned out business model. And the exercise of planning out the business model will either give you a set of parameters that goes around what you do and don't do for customers in that segment in order to make sure that the segment is profitable. Or if you cannot come up with a business model that can be made profitable, it tells you you shouldn't be in that business. And every chronically money-losing segment of your business is malfunctioning because it doesn't have a proper business model. And what normally happens is we start small, we do what we do, we sell the product that we sell to the customers that want to buy it. As we scale up, the company gets larger and has more resources and can do more things, but we take a cookie cutter approach that says we have the same business model for every account. And what happens is we eventually evolve into having a large-scale customer business model that we're applying to the guy that we've never seen before and will never see again, that walks up to our counter and wants $5 worth of product. And that simply is non-functional. It is impossible to make functional, but it's the way that we think of ourselves doing business, and so we never challenge or question it. And going through the process of setting up business models for each one of these virtually can guarantee that every segment of your business is a money-making segment, and this is the roadway to high profitability. Now, I've been working for about a decade with distribution companies looking at profitability issues, and across that course of time, where most of the companies are 3 to 4% bottom line, companies that have focused on having a proper business model, have scaled up, made investments, logistical infrastructure and so on, are running 10 to 13%, and some of the outliers are running 20% to bottom line. And these companies are doing this because they're looking at how what expenditures they're willing to make in each one of these segments, and they're tailoring the business to do so. So inside the book, they talk about the business model canvas. And the canvas has 9 blocks on it. It talks about who the customers are, what it is that they want, how you communicate that, how you develop relationships with those, what is the value proposition and the product or service that you provide that the customers want. What are the key resources and key activities that are necessary? What are the key partners that you might have to make this happen, whether it be vendors or sales agents or whoever? And then it talks about how you monetize this and what the cost structures associated with those things are. And in working through the business model canvas for each one of the segments of your business, you start to put the things in place. And with 30 plus years in business, when I discovered this some years ago, even in my business, I was able to discover blocks that I hadn't thought through properly. And taking the time to go through those things, put them in place, made a difference in the profit generation rate of my business, and it can for yours as well. And many of our clients have adopted this kind of thinking and have put an end to the dysfunctional parts of their business. And the most common and most significant malfunctioning unit in a distribution business will be counter sales or cash sales. And the reason why it functions so poorly and loses so much money is because it doesn't have an appropriate business model. Now, when we talk about strategy, that kind of impacts on that. And as Jonathan Burns says, if you don't say no to anything, then you don't have a strategy. And if you don't have limits on the things that you provide or don't provide in your business models, then you don't have a business model that's tailored for the particular sector that you're working on, a segment of the business you're working on. And so this is very important. So the first and maybe the most critical takeaway is to get, read, understand, and put into effect the information in this book. It's a very easy book to read and understand, and it can work miracles. And there's a number of partners. There's people out there like Benson Garner that will fly in and teach your executive team how to do this modeling so that you can build a durable skill inside your company, because business models need to be reviewed annually for each one of your segments. You need to take a day and work out and see how the market is changing and how your business model needs to change with it so that you can zoom to the top of the profit ranking and stay there. All right, so when we talk about the small accounts or the regular accounts, we're in many times talking about a model that Bruce Merrifield calls the Wholetail Model. And this is kind of a hybrid of wholesale that we have in retail that can get at Costco or Safeway or Kroger's or whatever it is that they buy. They can get in quantities from big box stores. When you look at a wholesale model, generally what you would do in Bruce's strategy is you would be thinking there is a opportunity to do what Fastenal has done or what other companies have done, and that is get some industrial space in some convenient locations, maybe several of them if you're in a large city, and put the most common impulse and high volume but low value products there, and then build something that looks a lot more like a retail model. So we're talking about moving counter sales out of the warehouse and making counter sales into something that's really specific to a fraction of the product line, the small volume items that lend themselves to more of a quasi-retail environment. It also means restricting parts of your product line. It's not that you don't sell them, but you don't sell them there, and you may not use the same model for your high value, high engineering, high information type products. So we have a limited high volume inventory that is put into that place. You would probably add impulse items, and that's very important because you want to increase the cash flow generation on each invoice. And having add-on items or impulse items at the checkout, somebody says, "Oh, I need another screwdriver," or "Oh, I had forgotten I need a bag of these," or a little box of those because I use them up and I run out of them. These kinds of things can be put there too, and the objective is to increase the gross profit on the invoices. Then you would have tailored pricing and policies. for these locations. And in your counter sales operation, which generally grows out of will call, and your small volume customers, one of the things you want to do is you want to increase profitability, and setting pricing in a different model is something that you do. And so in these locations, there may be a different price chart for the location. It's independent of who the customer is. Basically, people that want to come to your retail location will pay near retail pricing in order to be there. And then there will be policies around what you do or don't do, and I'll get into some of those in a moment. And one of the things you may do to deconflict some of the issues that come with this is you may create a separate alternate identity for these. There are many of our clients that have Packaging Express or Janitorial Express or something like that in these little locations. They don't carry their big company name on them, and they have a specific place where small customers can go. And they can buy a product at different pricing from a different retail brand, and it's tailored for the needs and wants and desires of low volume accounts. And so you may have an alternate identity with that to help deconflict some of the issues that may come with that. All right, first objective to change the balance of gross profit generation to expense consumption or resource consumption. And really, gross profit is cash flow. So now the more cash flow you create for an operation, the better. Ergo, having higher gross profit. And so the first thing is that pricing should be at or near retail. And as I said a few moments ago, that should be for everyone. If you have your largest account in the whole world, and they have somebody show up at your counter to buy $3 worth of product, your policy may be that at the counter we don't write up receivables, so it's cash and carry. That's a very good idea because it helps eliminate that expense. A customer may complain, how come I have to pay cash here? I'm your big account. Or you may come in and say, my price on this is this. How come you're charging that? And the answer should be something along the lines of, what on earth is your guy doing at our retail location? When wholesale customers like you, they get wholesale pricing, put that stuff on orders with other stuff, and we deliver it. And that's where that pricing is. In our counter sales division, we're competing with Costco and Safeway. And so we have pricing that's like theirs over there. If you want to have lower pricing, then you should be putting on an order. Don't be sending him down here just to get this. And having a proper policy and an answer around that helps your people explain to the customer when they have a question or a complaint about something what exactly is going on. And that is one of the things that is very important. Whenever you have a policy that you're going to apply in this, it is vital that it's fully communicated to the people that are going to get asked the questions, so that they don't make up or invent answers that are not good for your company when the customer comes in. You don't want somebody showing up or calling up the counter guy and saying, how come the price is so high? And he says, hey dude, I don't care what you want, or something like that. He should be properly trained to say, oh no, this is our retail location or a wholesale location, and we have a different price list over here. Your price list is associated with our regular order operation, and so to get your pricing, you need to send your order in rather than coming and just buying something off the cuff. And so he has the right answer when this happens. Along the policy line, and there's also, we've talked about, in fact, I'm sure everybody has thought about small order charges or minimum order charges and delivery pricing and that kind of thing. And that can, in some cases, conflict with your company reputation. We frequently have clients that say, we've always had free delivery. It's, kind of our stock in trade. We advertise it on the radio, that kind of thing. So we can't be charging for delivery. And our answer is, why not? You don't have to stop giving free delivery, but what you can do is you can tailor your product, your offering. You can say, of course we have free delivery on your first order each week, or of course we have free delivery on all orders over $100. And so you can put some parameters or some fine print into what you're offering in order to add some gross profit to the sale. So if you're adding a delivery charge, and maybe your delivery costs you $40, but if you put a $5 delivery charge on, $5 is a pretty good deal for the customer, but it adds $5 of gross profit to an item that only has $2 of gross profit on it, or $10 or $15, and it gives you a fighting chance to get enough cash flow generated on the order in order to overcome the expenses of the order. But more importantly, that can be used to curb or change or modify or encourage better behavior with the customers. It is amazing what customers will do to avoid what they see as an unnecessary fee or charge. And frequently it will get you the answer you've been looking for in the first place, and that is getting people to combine enough stuff together onto a single order that you can pick, pack, and ship it efficiently, and you can make money on it, which is what you're there for. And so we had a discussion with one pretty good general manager, and he said, we did the math, and on our product line, anybody that bought less than 10 skids, we calculated we'd lose about $150 on the order. And so they put a $150 small order charge on any order that was less than 10 skids. They got pretty much what they expected. They expected that some of the customers would, combine orders and get it up to 10 pallets, and they always had 10-pallet orders, so they'd be avoiding the charge. They had other customers that didn't like it and sort of muttered about it, but paid the $150 fee, which added enough gross profit onto the order to make it profitable at whatever level it might be. And but he said that we had a third effect, that they weren't expecting, and that was they were taking product orders that they were normally giving to other suppliers and combining them onto these orders to avoid the charge. And so in the end, there was a relatively small number of customers that actually paid the fee, but they wound up increasing their sales in certain accounts by taking some business away from the competition while the buyers tried to avoid the order charges. And the purpose of an order charge or any kind of a minimum is not to punish the customer, is to reward better behavior and to give them a reason to help you out in your business by making it more efficient. And so the minimum order charges, the paid deliveries, and those kinds of things are great ways of getting there. And a policy change can be applied to a very large proportion of your customers, probably more than 60–70%, and can change the nature of the business and build a business model that will work better. Now, getting more closely to the business model itself, the other thing that you'll want to do is you'll want to take a look at each expense category and see if it makes sense to have those expenses in a counter sales or in a small account environment. And so some of the expenses that are probably unnecessary and probably should be eliminated are selling expenses and sales compensation. Going back to proper models for compensating and incentivizing a sales force. If you have a sales force that is commissioned, now you really have to recognize and internalize the first principle of sales compensation design, and that principle is that you pay for persuasion. That is, doesn't make sense for somebody to be paid a lot to be able to manage, quote, manage a lot of accounts by taking them golfing and just phoning them up once in a while. And they have these accounts just because they're important accounts and they're the guy that takes over from the guy that retired from these accounts. That doesn't make sense. On the other end of the scale, no salesperson can be particularly effective with a territory with 100, 150, 180, 200 accounts. They don't have enough time in the year to get to all of these accounts, and the small accounts aren't really getting any coverage. You're just paying unnecessary commissions on sales that are going to happen anyway and are not influenced by the salesperson in any way at all. And so when you look at the accounts that are too small and don't generate enough gross profit to cover your expenses, one of the expenses you don't want to have to be trying to cover is sales commissions. And so those accounts rightfully belong as house accounts or inside sales accounts and don't belong in the hands of the road warriors, who should be spending a lot more of their time trying to more deeply penetrate the existing accounts or going out and finding new high volume accounts that are going to make a significant difference to the territory and the company. And so the selling expenses with car allowances and so on and so forth shouldn't have to apply to people that are showing up at the counter or buying small quantities once in a blue moon, and nor should sales commissions be part of that equation for those accounts. Second thing is that you should be looking at a self-service model. Many of our clients have reorganized the counter sales. You know, it started out as sort of enough space to stand inside the door with a counter, and then we had somebody that normally worked in the warehouse that would go and write up a sale when somebody showed up and rang the bell. And that is by far the least efficient way to pick, pack, and ship product. And what you'll find is that you're hiring people there because you can't afford to take those people off of the regular shipment preparation for your large and significant and money-generating accounts. Or if you do, your big orders are suffering while they go and service, you know, somebody doesn't really know what they want and they have to spend a half an hour talking to the guy so he can buy $50 worth of product, which gives you $10 of gross profit, which has absolutely no chance of overcoming the expense, even of the guy sitting on the counter, never mind the rest of your whole operation to make a profit. And so companies are reorganizing those things by moving the counter back, doing an analysis on the high volume and impulse items, and hopefully the high margin items, putting in front, making them all self-service, and in some cases even taking it far enough that they have customers doing their own scanning on one of these scanning kiosk things, so that the amount of supervision and input from an expensive warehouse guy is greatly reduced. One of the significant items in there is that even Costco and well, you know, Costco is a great model, or Home Depot cannot sell onesie-twosies or 37-cent items to anyone. It is impossible to make a profit doing that. It is a guaranteed loss, and a significant one, each time you do it. As an aside, any kind of proper analysis on your counter sales will generate or produce a model that probably looks something like: a guy comes in, he spends a lot of time getting his stuff, your guy spends a lot of time getting it to him, and then he takes $20, $30, $50 out of the till, staples it to the invoice he just wrote up, and gives it to the customer. And that's pretty much what is happening over there because the expenses are so high. And so one of the things that Costco does is you can't buy one of anything in Costco. And, you know, in the worst model in distribution, you got a 12-cent part, somebody can buy one of them, there's no barcode on it, the guy's got to look it up to get it into the system just to write up the darn part. Or worse, you may have to print out a barcode so he can scan it, you know, put the thing in the bag and write a number on the side or something like that so he can get it into the system. It's hugely inefficient, hugely expensive. And so if you look at Home Depot, you can't buy those little plastic things for doing irrigation that are worth a nickel each in single quantities. You're going to buy a 50-pack. And that way, when they sell you a $12 item, they're not selling you a 12-cent item. And that is the thing that gives them a chance to make money, and that's what we should be doing as well. Getting package items from the vendors, making sure they're barcoded for scanning, just like Walmart does or anybody else. They all require that the products be properly barcoded, or they won't carry them, to make sure that they're efficient at their operation. You should be doing that as well. And as a final aside on that, one of the things that we do particularly poorly as an industry is we completely ignore the analysis done by our vendors, where they say, you know, we're selling these cans of something or other, you got to buy a case of 12. And they know very well they cannot sell you one and make money selling you one. So they make you buy a case of 12. There's a pretty good indicator there that we should be selling cases of 12 as well. But for some, you know, because we haven't thought it through, what we do is we break up the cases and we'll sell one to somebody. And everybody up the chain already knows that that's impossible to make money on, but we've completely lost that lesson and we break stuff up. So for heaven's sake, stop breaking the cases. Somebody comes in and says, gee, I can't use 12 cans of Windex. So, well, you're going to use 12 cans of Windex eventually, and you won't have to come back here to get it. But if you want a single can of Windex, you're going to have to go to Safeway to get it, because we don't sell it like that. We're a wholesaler. And so eliminating small quantities is very, very important to eliminating losses on those regular minus customers. Then we should have unrecovered delivery expenses is a bad idea as well. Certainly at the counter it should be cash and carry. And the carry thing is literal. If there's something they want delivered, then there has to be, the delivery has to be paid for by the customer, not by us. And going back to our roots, recognizing that our business is to buy things in volume and to break up those volume and to sell it at a markup to customers, we have to recognize that one of the things that we sell, one of the things that we buy in bulk is delivery. And whether we make the delivery ourselves by having our own fleet, or we buy the delivery by shipping it out on UPS or FedEx or some other carrier, we are buying it in volume, getting pricing that the customer can't get. And we should be giving the customer retail pricing on that. Delivery is a product like anything else, or a service like anything else, and we should be selling it at a markup. The very best account that I can think of right now in the WayPoint universe makes about $2.7 million a year in delivery markups. And in fact, they make more money in delivery markups than they do on much of their product line. And they have some sort of bulky stuff that they deliver, and they just don't send it to anyone for free. And so at the very minimum, you need to recover your delivery costs, but we should get away from the thought process that says delivery is just a cost and we're going to pass the cost along to the customer. Delivery is actually a product or a service, and we should be selling it in volume and making a profit on it like anything else, particularly in the small accounts. And then finally, there should be no accounts receivable. It makes absolutely no sense to be chasing down a $37 invoice 90 days outstanding with a customer that you've only seen once in all of your history and will never see again. The rates of delinquency and losses on ARs on counter sales is astronomical. And it's a completely unnecessary expense, and it's also unnecessary to be hiring people in the accounts receivable department to be chasing down these invoices. And so if customers are expecting to be billed and get trade credit on things, they need to be actual wholesale accounts that are buying enough volume that they can pay their part of the accounting personnel that are required to manage those invoices. And it's not just the collections part of it. Somebody has to you have to send out the invoice, you have to collect the money, you have to put it back through the system, you've got to deposit the money in the bank, you have to reconcile the accounts. There's an awful lot of activity that goes on in accounting that can be attributed directly back to the 60, 70, 80% of your business that are small accounts that should not be on an AR basis. And this is and if you want to make a wholetail model or a counter sales model that's going to be profitable, this is one of the things that absolutely cannot be part of your expense envelope, or it's going to be impossible to make profitable. Or as an alternate, you're going to have minimum orders that are $200, $300, $400, $500, and so those things are incompatible with each other. And so that's something that needs to be thought through. So I want to kind of wrap it up there. The main point of this is you need a proper business model to accommodate sales in this segment. If you build a proper business model, then you can make sure that this segment, like every other segment, generates money for the company and generates a bottom line. You can shift the number of regular minus accounts into regular plus accounts by changing some of your policies and the way you do things along these lines. And there are many other things that you can find in our videos, other tactics and techniques, and you can go to quantumprofitmanagement.com or profitideas.com and see videos from the experts that we've had the pleasure of interviewing on these topics and get more ideas of how to do these things. But this is a great framework, and if you take a few hours in the next 7 days and think through the business model for your regular accounts, and in particular for your counter sales operation. You can make some policy and other changes that can be enacted that will change the nature of your business. When you do it, work carefully. If you're a WayPoint account, we'd be happy to spend some time with you and talk through some of the caveats that you have on making these policy changes, so you do it right the first time and don't make some kind of mistake that causes you stress along the way. But we have some great recommendations and some great information that you can put to work in changing the nature of these accounts and making them into a profit-generating segment in your business. So I want to thank you very much for spending time with us this morning. I do hope this is something that's going to make new money for you and will make your business better for year after year in time to come. So thanks a lot and have a great day.